What's going on, folks? Welcome to another episode of Kids Today with Dr. Kamal Jones. I am Dr. Kamal Jones. On today's episode, we are breaking down the 2025 best and worst states for child well-being. Definitely stick with us all the way to the end because the number 1 state and the number 50 state might actually surprise you. It certainly was surprising for me to find out who was on that list and where they ranked. So every year, the Annie E. Casey Foundation puts out an annual report on child well-being. If you are not familiar with the Annie E. Casey Foundation, they're a wonderful organization. They do a lot of work around well-being for children and for families. And what they do in this particular case is they pour through this mountain of data and they section out into 4 main categories. These categories are health, education, family/community, and economic well-being. And so they look at those 4 different categories of well-being, and then they also take those sections in aggregate to develop a score of overall child well-being. And that helps to sort of sort which states are the best and the worst when it comes to overall child well-being. So just very briefly, let me break down what these 4 different categories are based on, okay? So when we're talking about economic well-being, they're looking at indicators such as child poverty. They're looking at stable parental employment numbers. They're looking at housing costs and the burden for housing access. And then they're also looking at percentages of teens who are not in either school or working. So those are the factors that make up the economic well-being portion. Looking at educational well-being, here are their main indicators. They're looking at young children who are not in school. They're looking at 4th grade reading levels, 8th grade math levels, and high school graduation rates. For the health well-being numbers, we're talking about low birth weight, health insurance coverage rates, child and teen death rates, and youth obesity or overweight rates. Those are where they're making up the health indicators. For the family and community well-being section, the indicators include single-parent families, the head of the household lacking a high school diploma, high poverty areas, and teen birth rates. So those are the factors that all come together to form the family and community well-being score. One thing that was really fascinating to me when reviewing this report was really the wide disparities that can exist between multiple categories within an individual state. So if you look at, for example, the great state of New York, right? New York is a top 10 state when it comes to health. New York is a top 10 state when it comes to education, but it ranks 46th when it comes to economic well-being of children. 46, which I don't think would be a surprise to anybody who lives in New York and knows how expensive of a state it is, especially in and around New York City. But it shows that there can be real disparities in what states do really well and what states do really poorly. And so overall, part of the mission of this kind of report is to serve as a guide for states, right? To help to highlight where their weak points are and where they could be improving for kids. And honestly, I think it's really helpful for people with families as you are deciding potentially where you want to settle down, to look at this report or similar documents to figure out where is the best place for kids. What kind of state is really prioritizing the overall well-being of my children, who's going to be the most helpful, and what states might be actively working against the best interests for your child's well-being. All right, so without further ado, let's just jump right into the results of this report. So we will start with 2025's worst states for child well-being, the 3 worst states for child well-being. Coming in at number 48 is the state of Mississippi, which is actually a step up from where Mississippi was last year when it ranked second to last. But coming in at 48 is the state of Mississippi. Coming in at 49 for the worst state for overall child well-being is the state of Louisiana. And coming in dead last place rank number 50 for the fourth consecutive year in a row is the state of, pause for a second, think about this. Who do you think it's going to be? It is the state of New Mexico. The 50th ranked state, the dead last state when it comes to child well-being for the year 2025 is unfortunately the state of New Mexico. This is the fourth consecutive year for the state of New Mexico being ranked dead last. New Mexico ranks 49th in economics. It ranks 46th in health. It ranks in 50th place for both family and community, as well as for overall educational well-being for children. And so that forms an aggregate of 50th place for the child well-being score for the state of New Mexico. Now, listen, my goal here is not to poo-poo on New Mexico. But with that said, 4 years in a row is kind of crazy. Like, you got work to do. And all jokes aside, it does let you know how the state is or is not prioritizing the well-being of children. And so the leaders in New Mexico, I think you have some perhaps reflection to do and some things to think about how you can improve the life and well-being of children, especially 4 years in a row. Like, that's wild, bro. All right. If you're from New Mexico or any of, honestly, the bottom three states, tap in with us, leave a comment. Why do you think your states are ranked that way? Is that your lived experience? I got a few folks from Louisiana, from New Orleans, things like that. Let me know. Is this your lived experience? And if so, what do you think your state can do better? Or what do you think this report might be getting wrong? All right, so we will jump over to now the top 3 states for overall child well-being. Top 3 states. Coming in at number 3 is the state of Massachusetts. Number 3, the state of Massachusetts. Coming in at number 2 is the state of Vermont. Shout out to my boy Bernie. And then, drum roll, coming in at number 1, the top state for child well-being in our country is the state of, what'd you guess? That's right. You guessed New Hampshire. You are 100% correct. The state of New Hampshire is ranked number 1 as the best state in the country for overall child well-being. So this is actually the 3rd consecutive year that New Hampshire has ranked at number 1. They came in 2nd in economics. They came in 4th in educational well-being, and then 1st in both health and family/community well-being for children. So they really did their thing this year. Shout out to New Hampshire. If you're from one of these top 3 states, leave a comment. Let me know if you think that this is a little bit off. If you grew up here and have a different experience in one of these states, definitely let us know. And it will be interesting to see comments from both some of those lower ranking states and from the upper states as well. Part of my reason for bringing this up is, are there ways that New Hampshire can be serving as a bright spot for New Mexico or any of the top 3 serving as lessons for some of the states that were ranked on the lower side? I think there are always lessons that can be learned. This is always nuance, right? There's always a lot of history. If we look at the top 3 states, they tend to be states that are very more well off financially. They tend to be states that are more racially homogenous, especially with New Hampshire and Vermont in particular, as opposed to Mississippi or Louisiana, which tend to be, and certainly New Mexico, tend to be very black and brown and have large Native American populations and a host of groups who have been historically marginalized, who have had resources stripped out of the community, who have had less educational access. And so there are a host of factors that can be at play with how a state ranks. But it is worth examining, are there opportunities, are there bright spots for learning from the states that have done really, really well for children? So that's our overall top 3, bottom 3. But let me flash for you on the screen here, for those who are watching on video, our overall rankings. This is 1 through 50 right here. Look at this, check it out, see where your state ranks, and let me know in the comment section. Is that a surprise for you? Do you think that makes sense from what you know about your state? Leave a comment. Okay, my friends, that is our show today. Definitely, we will share the article with you in the description and in the show notes. We are now both on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And so definitely check the show notes to get access to this report. As always, definitely like the video, subscribe. And until next time, this is Kids Today.